Okay. Well, hi everyone. Thank you for being with us today. Welcome to the Wonder Series. The Wonder Series is a monthly forum where we basically ask the questions that you want answers to. Sometimes it's those questions that, you've always wanted to know, but you're too afraid to ask, too shy. But we're here to ask those questions of our experts and to have those questions answered in a way that helps you to think outside the box and maybe do things differently, think differently, so you can live that healthy, happy life that you have always been dreaming of. Today, our topic today is really fun. It is, can romance make happiness happen? And so we're going to talk to our favorite romance expert and soul sister, Lori Bryant Woolridge, and she has some ideas, some things that she wants to tell us. But if we have questions, this is the perfect opportunity. There's just, this is a safe space. So ask the questions. If you have comments, let's make this a true conversation. So often we get on these things and we kind of listen in and we get off and we think, oh yeah, that was really great. And then we forget about it. But when we participate and really join in is really when we can make those concepts and those thoughts real and make them part of our life. So for those of you who are new and who don't know me, I'm Denise Siegel. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Living Healthy List. And essentially what my job is to find the experts that are available to you, who are ready to give you the answers and truly pick up the phone and help you. Experts are great, but if you can't talk to them, they're not so great. So our experts at Living Healthy List are here to give you honest, reliable information that you can actually use. So welcome again. Lori, thank you for being here with us today.
You're welcome. I'm loving it.
Awesome. So tell us, and of course, some of us know you, so, but it's always interesting to learn more about our friends. So tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
So I'm an intuitive love coach, which means that I help people, mainly women, understand love and love in their relationships and how it works through their relationships. And it really is a matter of bringing together, really integrating the mind, body, soul connection. And we talk about that a lot, but how do we really integrate it? And love is the thread that I help people, make that integration, bring it together and make it stick. And so I do a lot of work with women at all, from the intimacy part of it, but relationships, but everything is always keyed up on self-love. So that's, and the intuitive part comes from me being a spiritual quester for about 30 years. I call myself a love connoisseur because I have really been enamored with and curious about and enticed by love ever since I was a little kid. And I didn't like cartoons, but I would collect I think we're all old enough to remember those Love Is cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
Remember it said Love Is, right? I would collect those every week they came out, and I had a little photo album of that. And that curiosity really has led me to a really interesting, loving life, and really experimenting with and exploring all different kinds of love, and then researching, teaching, and then through the angel connection, channeling more information. That it's really the foundation of the information that I work with the people, with the peoples. So,
Peoples.
Yes. So that's kind of me in a crazy old nutshell.
I love your crazy old nutshell. You always bring a certain level to my life and to these conversations. And, things that, we all think we know what love is, but we know what love is on, kind of in our own little world, but there's so much more to it. So that is what I'm really excited to talk to you about, love and romance. And again, our topic is, can romance make happiness happen? So Lori, I'm going to open the floor totally to you right now. I know I have a couple of questions that that we can touch on. But I think I like when we do these, if you just want to just kind of start with what you want to share with us, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to romance, it's such a huge topic that we are literally grown to be romantics. I mean, everything about our youthful existence, if we pick up any books or read any Disney movies, anything, we are literally raised with the idea of this romantic notion of love, right? And that's what we quest for, and that's what we're searching for all our life, that romantic sense of love that makes us feel valued and treasured and valuable and worthy and lovable. And so when we start out with that mindset, we start out with this mindset as love is something that somebody else gives to us, and romance is the way I know that this love is being given. So romance becomes the gestures that people use in order to prove to us that we are worthy and lovable. So when you start out from that spot, it's just setting yourself up for frustration and pain and disappointment, because the reality is we are in this world to find love of self. And every relationship is about finding and growing and evolving in that sense of self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we get caught up in that kind of ego love that's connected to romantic gestures, it just keeps us cycling. So the important thing is to understand really a couple of things. One, what a relationship is, right? And a relationship is the way we connect two or more concepts or objects or people, right? That's a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you think about romance, romance in the context of a dictionary would be feeling excitement or mystery that's associated with love. When you put those two things together, like I said, we're setting ourselves up. So we need to up-level our mindset and up-level our idea of what relationships are. And the first and most important relationship we need to have is with ourselves. So when we talk about being connected, a state of being connected, we have to first be connected to ourselves. And one of the ways that we can get connected to ourselves and grow that sense of love is through romance. But just like when we think of the word love, the word we least associate with love is self. Just like with relationships, the word we least associate with relationship is self. We do not think of our relationship as ourselves, and being in a relationship with ourselves is something that's important, valuable, and actually the keystone of all the success of our other relationships. So if we can just start with that mindset of the most important relationship with yourself, in order to grow some of that self-love is through romance, then we can take that and take it to the level of when we're sharing romance with another person. It's not a matter of showing me your worth, but it's me sharing my own with you through these gestures. If that makes any sense at all.
It does. The interesting thing, as you started to as you were talking, the first thing, that image that came to my mind is recently we were watching one of the original Disney films, and it happened to be Snow White. And I even remember saying, you know, when the prince came in and gave her a kiss and she wakes up, I'm like, oh, that's so romantic. And it is like, it's the romantic, it's the way we think of romance from the time we're really young. It really is these big grandiose gestures. And I agree, you know, when you think that that's what it's all about, the disappointment is real and it's frequent.
Right. And that's why it's really important. And if you connect the ties of, can romance make happiness happen? Absolutely. Because if you now think of yourself, the most important relationship right now is with me, and I want to romance myself more, that means applying the same gestures and ideas and patterns of thought that you would apply to someone else you're trying to woo or love to yourself. So, you know, when you're interested in somebody, you're trying to romance them, you're not all about negative thoughts and, and telling them all the things that are wrong with them. But that's exactly what we do to ourselves almost every single time we step in the mirror. Well, that's not romantic. So stopping those negative thoughts, complimenting yourself. Again, when you're romancing someone else, you're all about the compliment. And it's recognizing that person isn't perfect, but what you see in them is not the bald head or the pot belly. What you see in them is the laughter or the ways their eyes sparkle, right? But when we're in the mirror, all we see is the thinning hair and the saggy boobs. But enough about me. When you talk about, you know, loving gestures, again, so everything that you apply, those gestures, treating yourself, right? We tend to reward ourselves for, you know, I lost the 10 pounds, I did this, I whatever, I'm rewarding myself. When you romance somebody, you treat them. You were saying, I see you, and this is just a gesture because you're you and I thought about you. And so when we apply those same romantic gestures to ourselves, you begin to start looking at yourself as somebody who is worthy of being loved and lovable. And you also, without you knowing it, you're training other people how to love you. Because how you love yourself is how you teach other people to love you. So all the things that we're waiting for somebody else to do are all the things that if we do for ourselves, we begin to see ourselves as somebody worthy of good thoughts, of good gestures, of, you know, compassion and kindness, somebody who's worthy of being lovable. And when you have that worth, you can take that into any relationship. And I'm not saying that romantic gestures are not something you want in a relationship, because God knows it puts the fizz in things, you know. But what the difference is, and this is where the happiness clicks in, is that you're not doing it or expecting it as proof of your worth and value to another person, right? It just, again, is another, it's like the champagne of, you know, puts those bubbles and fizzes in.
I like the bubbles.
Yeah, me too.
Something that came to mind when you mentioned about, you know, we reward ourselves instead of treat ourselves. And I think that's something that we learn really, really young. You know, I remember as a kid, you know, if I straightened my room, you know, I could have a snack, or, you know, if I, you know, picked up my toys, mom would have a yogurt pop. And a yogurt pop, before like yogurt pops were actually store-bought, when you actually had to make them yourself in those little Tupperware thingies. My mom used to make those for me when I was a little girl. And the reward piece, like, oh my gosh, if I knew I was going to get one of those, you betcha I was going to do what, you know, whatever it was that she wanted from me.
Right.
It's interesting as I'm thinking this through a little bit, you know, rewarding as opposed to treating. When we think of ourselves. What does everybody else think? Like, what are their thoughts about the, you know, rewarding yourself as opposed to, you know, I deserve this, I should treat myself? Please share.
Oh, come on, people.
Like, come on, I know you, ladies.
I'm unmuting. I'm almost there.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Good morning.
Hi.
It's early here. Hi.
It
No,
is.
I just think that it's a paradigm shift, as Denise pointed out, for so many of us, women included. And I would love tips on how to instill this in my children and my daughter. I have a son too, but just that shift from receiving our definition of worth or that feeling of worthiness externally to shifting that to an internal thing, right? Where we're giving ourselves a love and we're worthy. And that love, self-love, is the very first foundational love after
Yeah.
our parents.
Well, it's such a thin line between expectation and acceptance and how kids value themselves. And I think one of the things to understand is teaching kids right off the bat that love isn't something that I give to you and that you give to me. Love is something that we celebrate with each other. I celebrate the love that you are as you celebrate the love that I am. And so when you take it out of the realm of it's something I give, because if I give it to you, I can take it away. And so when I give it to you and I'm angry at you, now suddenly I've taken that love away, right? And so in spiritual terms, we are love. The essence of who we are is love, because we are a soul, a spiritual soul having a human experience. And so we are love. And so that is what actually every relationship is about. It's about celebrating ourselves as love. So if you can, and then part of that celebration of kids with love is recognizing the uniqueness of their soul energy, right? And drawing, because the uniqueness gives you the opportunity to create awareness of difference without making judgment. And I don't know, that came out of my mouth kind of like ass backwards, I think. So I don't know if that made sense. But sorry, I am a irreverent spiritualist. So the idea is when you recognize a kid's uniqueness, so your brother is different from your sister because they are unique in this sense of their own loving sense, then it's not, well, she's this and so I'm not that, and so therefore I'm not loved the same way because you don't admire the same thing. So it's really about stopping to make love something that we give and recognize based on differences, or, but we recognize as we all are, this is who we are. And so we're celebrating that with each other. Because as you grow into loving relationships, that's the whole thing about self-validation and self-love. Most people are looking for validation from other people when they're looking for a relationship and loving. So as you train kids to recognize that I am sharing, and the sharing becomes something that, so I don't need you to tell me I'm worthy. I am worthy and therefore I'm giving, right? And the other thing that's kind of a next level mindset that it was really helpful when I was raising my kids is recognizing that receiving and giving are the same thing. And it's a mindset that is hard, if I'm giving, but you gave me the popsicle, right? And I received it, how is that the same? Because it's not the action, it's the feeling, right? Feeling is everything. And when you're teaching kids how to love, feeling is everything. And recognizing the idea that things that feel good mean that I am on the right path. Things that make me feel bad mean that I'm not doing the right thing. And it's not a conscious guilt thing. It's just like, I need to step back to who I am. And when I am love, I am this kind of person. So I hope that was helpful, because it really sounded a little out there.
No, I think that's really important, not just for kids, but obviously for kids. But I think it's important for people who, have never really thought of it in this way. I have friends and family who, kind of grew up in really rigid homes. And, it really was more kind of a give and take, it seemed much more, I don't want to say like you're in the military, but one of the people that I have in mind, it was very, very rigid and very regimented in their lives with their parents and their relationships with one another.
Yeah, and the thing with give and take, and another thing that's a child lesson on, is when we talk about give and take and we separate the two, we're talking about lack and gain. And that ruins us through our whole adult life too. Because when we think about things as lack and gain, everything, particularly like something like change, becomes an exercise in lack and gain. And we stunt our our happiness because we stunt our ability to recognize that change is just growth, right? And so that's part of the change. You get you when you give and receive with change and growth, it's a mutual exchange and it's an even exchange. It's just on the other side of the coin.
So, Lori, I have a question.
Oh, we hear you, Lou.
Okay, thanks. So, intellectually, I think I absolutely agree with everything that you're saying. Yet, and I think that I speak for many people potentially, is how do you flip that switch? Like, I know I've been domesticated some other way to
Yeah.
believe other than what I know to be true, that I am love. I just am, right? That's who it is. And yet, I find myself, especially with the man I care about the most, falling back into that pattern and sort of holding him accountable for my happiness. Like, you didn't do what I expected you to do, and therefore I'm unhappy, and it's your fault.
Right.
Right? And I don't want to fall into those patterns, but I do over and over again, and specifically with that relationship. So that would tell me somewhere in my life histories of my growth that this is something I need to learn in this life journey. And yet, how do I flip that switch?
Well, I think awareness is always the thing, right? So a couple of ways that we get, if I backtrack just two steps to get to this step, and then you remember that step because I will forget it by the time I get to it. So, just being honest. One of the things that happens to us is that instead of feeling emotion, we become emotion, right? So when something happens in your life that makes you feel unhappy, you know, you don't just feel unhappy, you become unhappy. When situations happen that make you feel angry, we don't just feel anger, we become the anger. We become the betrayal. We become the emotion. And when you become the emotion, it's a much harder lift to transform because now it's become part of your identity. And where that is important to answer your question is now I am an unhappy person. It doesn't mean you're totally unhappy, but in this arena, in the relationship, I am unhappy, right? And so the other thing too is we look at our behaviors as the clues when they're really just the way our emotions manifest, right? And so we try to change our behaviors without getting down to the root of what the issue really is. So once you become the emotion, it's a matter of recognizing that fact, right? And it's so easy to become the emotion because we judge our emotions. And this is another way we get caught up in the unhappy trap, right? Because all of us feel negative and positive emotions, but we judge them as negative versus just seeing them as indicators. If I'm unhappy or angry or fearful, instead of judging it that something's wrong with me, blah, 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 and I just look at it as why am I fearful? Why am I angry? Why am I unhappy? And do the work to dig down to figure out, oh, it's because I don't feel like I'm ever being heard. Why don't I ever feel like I'm being heard? You know, and then you can go back onto your life when your brothers never let you say anything, or again, enough about me. Or you can say, you know, okay, that's where it came from, but I don't really need to go back and beat up my brothers for that. I have to understand, you know, blah, 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 blah. So to answer your question in a more coherent area, one, recognize, are you feeling the emotion or have you become the emotion, right? So if it's a repetitive pattern, you more likely become the emotion. So what are you most unhappy about? Is it the same kind of thing over and over? Behaviors he does over and over again that make you unhappy, right? So then you need to look at that, and then you need to stop looking at the behaviors. You need to peel back to see what the behaviors, what's the emotion causing the behavior.
Or what's the emotion evoked from the behavior that's really my own to own, right?
Well, and
To
that was,
understand. So I think that the profound thing that I took from what you just shared is I have become the emotion rather than just feeling the emotion and acknowledging it and moving through it, if you will.
right, and understanding why you're feeling that way. But the
Right.
thing about it is, and exactly what you said, relationships are just mirrors for ourselves. Relationships, the universal traits of relationships, they're literally laboratories in which we enter to learn lessons, to teach lessons about ourselves so that we love ourselves more. So every relationship is, yay, all about me. Every single time, all about me. And so what we do is the, law of attraction will tell you like energy attracts like energy. So you and your friend are the exact same core, I call it magnetic root energy, exact same magnetic root energy. And what you are there in that lesson to learn is somehow grow to the next level. So the unhappiness, you have to look at is what is the lesson here that I'm trying to learn? What am I being pushed to move forward with? So if it isn't, if I'm not being heard, well, why aren't I not being heard? Why, what is the feeling? Well, am I not being heard because I'm not really even speaking my truth, right? Where do I come into the picture? Because we can never worry about their behavior because they are on a path all into their own.
Right.
Their behavior is only good for us because it shows us the contrast and the gaps in which we're working from.
Excellent.
Interesting. It's interesting. I was thinking about relationships, from like when you just said, relationships are all about me. And I was thinking, about relationships I had in the past, like, when I was in high school and in college and, until I met my husband. And I never really thought of it as growing experiences, like more than like, okay, no, not to do that again. But I think when looking at it as these relationships are about, it's about me and sharing, as opposed to, this relationship is about the other person and, what they can bring to my life.
And it's really interesting too, because that's why people get caught up, well, why can't I get the fairy tale? Where's the fairy tale? And fairy tales absolutely are true, and fairy tales absolutely happen. The happy ending is always possible because you write the endings. You write your own endings because you are the co-creator of every relationship. But here's the thing, when you think of relationships for what they really are, laboratories to help you learn and grow, or for you to teach somebody else to learn and grow, is if you take the lessons out of those relationships and you learn from them, you evolve a little bit, you grow a little bit. And the next relationship then is there to teach you something else, and you grow a little bit and you evolve a little bit. And then that, when you are ready to experience love in a real, truly celebratory, sparklers and firecracker type way, where it's really literally the lesson in that relationship is the celebration of love, of you celebrating your love of self with someone else who's done the work and is celebrating. That's when those relationships happen. So it's really a matter of where you are on your learning path. And the other way that makes so much sense and gives you so much sense of empowerment and pleasure is when you recognize that, you also recognize that some relationships, when the lesson is learned, the relationship is complete because the lesson is complete. And so that means, and when you walk away from a lesson that's complete, because you walk away, say, it's a little bittersweet because, oh, I'm going to miss that, you know, whatever. But you recognize it's time to move on. There's no anger. There's no resentment. There's no betrayal. There is that sense of, wow, I'm so glad that happened. What's next? When a relationship has ended and you haven't understood what the lesson, you know, you haven't really learned the lesson, then you repeat the same lesson and you keep repeating the same lesson. And it ends with the anger, it ends with the betrayal, it ends with the all that stuff. And you just carry that into the next one. But I call it relationship residue, where you just shove it in the corner like the dust bunnies. And you like, okay, well, I wasn't vulnerable enough in that relationship, so I'm going to be super vulnerable in this relationship. So you decide to change your behavior and you begin to personality shift into the next relationship, because you're not learning the lessons, you're just trying to change the course, you know? And so as you really learn, the relationships are complete and you get to go into the next level. And so you understand that fairy tales happen, and what is the phrase, happily ever after absolutely happens. But you have to understand that happily ever after may be 3 months, it may be 3 years, it may be 30 years, it may be 60. It depends on what you're supposed to learn in that relationship. And so many relationships, when you think about it, these long-term relationships, that people aren't really happy. They're going the duration. They're settling. They are not growing. They're stagnating. Relationships are meant to be, you're not supposed to tolerate love, right? And so much we tolerate, we settle because of that. So again, it really ties into understanding what relationships are, what you're supposed to be doing with love, and how the more you love yourself, the more that you're going to attract that same quality of love, right? Because we're always so worried about the quality of love we attract. Why don't they love me harder? Why don't they love me better? Why don't they love me longer? We're not thinking about what we're giving off. So if you start from the other side, what is the quality of love I am giving? Law of attraction 100% is going to give you that same quality of love. So you are getting only what you're giving off.
Okay, I have a thought. Okay, so in my past relationships, now Mark and I have been married for almost 17 years. Like we got the happily ever after, and that's still continuing. But I'm thinking about my relationships in the past, and I was always the giver. I'm a giver. I love people. I love giving. I love sharing, you know, helping, whatever it is. And so as I'm thinking about this, but I was always sharing. I was always giving, but I didn't get in return. And not that I always give to get, that's not it. But, you know, sometimes when you're giving your all, it's kind of nice to get something back.
Yeah. So your question is, I don't believe your theory.
No, I'm just kind of like.
No, so
I think that there's a feeling that Denise has that, again, would be common among a lot of people who go,
oh,
but I do give and give and give, and I never get in return in that particular relationship.
absolutely, absolutely. And I get this. And this is why, you know, when we talk about next level things, because we are really, so at the level that most people are at the moment, and just in terms of understanding relationships, again, if I give, you're telling me I should get back in return. And that's why I'm saying you can never deal with the behavior, because behaviors, how many times people do things differently what they think, say things differently than they think, right?
That's true.
Think that behaviors are just smoke screen, right? Because you know that some of the most confident people that you know that look like they're the most confident people, they're the puddles on the floor every time they go home. So you can't go by behavior. What you have to go by is literally your feelings. You know everything by the way that feels. So you give, and I feel bad because I'm not getting in return. Okay? So again, it is not it's just an indicator. We're not judging. I feel bad because I'm not getting anything in return. Well, if I feel bad that I'm not getting anything in return, what does that mean about me?
I'm making myself feel bad.
Well, yes, but that means I have expectations.
Oh.
So if I have expectation, peel back another layer. What is my expectation of this person? That if I give him, because I'm showing him how much I care, that he's not giving, I expect him to give back to me so I know how much he cares. Ooh, well, so that's what I'm saying. You got to just keep peeling till you get to the place of, you know what, I am a giving, loving person. That I have to be honest with myself. How much am I tap dancing? How much is my giving a matter of so that you will, I make myself indispensable. I make myself valuable. I make myself, right? And so that's where then you get down to the layer, oh, I'm expecting something because, and what I'm expecting is validation of my worth in this relationship. That has nothing to do with him. The work then has to be on you.
You said something earlier that I think is worth repeating and clarifying is receiving and giving and receiving really the same thing, right? So talk a little bit more about that for a second, because I think that's an important one to own as well, to be able to think of it that way.
Yeah, so giving and receiving are the same thing, because if you can't give, you can't receive. You can't receive, you can't give. I know that sounds like mumble jumble back and forth. Well, can you clarify? But so here's the thing. If I give to you, I almost guarantee it, all my clients that are, if you ask them how they are, what kind of lover they are, right? Are you someone who pleases? Is it easier for you to please? Like, are you like, you give the, and then, or is it easier for you to receive? And if I ask any one of you, I would bet most of you would say, I'm the giver. It is easier for me. I find great pleasure in giving pleasure. Right? The ability to give and not be able to say it's equal. I can give as good as I get. Tells you that what you are giving is not truly equal to what you're receiving. Let's see, how can I put it this way? I know. In order to give to somebody, you have to be able to receive it back. It's the same emotion. It's the same baseline equivalency of unconditional love, right? So if you can say that you can give unconditionally, but you can't receive unconditionally, you're not really able to give it unconditionally. And most,
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying most people don't realize how little they are able to receive. The fact that you can't go out into nature and really be caught up in the blue skies and the flowers and the birds tweeting, your head is so, those are the gifts that nature and the universe has to give you. That tells you a lot about your ability to receive. If you can't receive a compliment, that tells you a lot about your ability to receive. On the spin end of that, if you are a person who can't receive, how much true giving are you able to do? If you don't give compliments, you can't receive compliments, how much giving are you actually doing? Does that help clarify it a little bit better?
I think at one point earlier you said receiving and giving are the same thing because it's about the feeling. Yeah, that does make sense. And
it's about the unconditionalness of it. And that's always the key, because giving is and receiving is simply it's part of love's language. It is part of a dialect of love, right? It's just one of, compassion, joy, giving, receiving. And if you cannot do one, you cannot truly do the other. And just because you're good at one, that if you're good and it's bound, right? Seek balance, find happiness. If you're really good at receiving, but you're not good at giving, that really means you're not that good.
Just not that good.
I don't like the way that ended, but but I'm grasping more of what you're saying. But
Yeah.
you also brought up something that's been playing in the back of my mind, and you said it's the language of love, right? So there's the conversation around the 5 love languages, which I'm sure everyone on this call is familiar with, which I have been through with my spouse as well. And I try and the ultimate of the 5 love languages is to understand how your partner receives love, and to try and give it in that way. But what I know to be true in my experience is that that's a really hard shift. And more so, it's easier to literally acknowledge that I know that my husband's love language is acts of service. And so when he's doing anything around the house to get things done, to keep the yard up, what have you, that he is telling me he loves me.
Right.
This is not my love language.
Right.
Mine either.
Yeah. And you know what? When I speak a love language, I wasn't speaking of that. I'm just showing that the different ways love manifests itself.
Right.
But that's an interesting point too. And one of the things that people have a hard time realizing when it comes to relationships and romance is that people are loving you only the best that they are capable of. Mm-hmm. They are literally loving you the best that they are capable of. And on the flip side, you are doing the same.
Yeah, and so that's that acknowledgement. And for me, learned it through that process of the 5 love languages. Learned is an interesting word. Logically, I know it.
Yeah.
Emotionally, I don't always own it, right? When I want something in my love language and he's not reacting or behaving in that way. But and that's another great reminder, Lori, is they are doing the best that they can in their growth at that moment in time and who they are. And it's not, I should not take it personally, which is the other thing we do.
Absolutely.
Turn it around and go, he doesn't love me or she doesn't like me or whatever. Exactly. And that's judgment.
Exactly. And the thing too, to tie back all of this back around, is that that's when you romance yourself. If his romance language is service, but you want, chocolate and jewelry and a bubble bath, romance yourself. Mm-hmm. Give yourself. And because if you're waiting from him, remember, you're peeling back layers. If you peel under, you're looking for validation and worth. If he does this for me on the regular, then that means I'm lovable and worthy. So when you romance yourself and treat yourself and that you know that you're worthy, then what he does is just more, cherry on top. And then the times that he actually speaks your damn language, it's like, hey, right? But again, everything is always our perception. If you want to perceive that he doesn't love me enough because he doesn't do this for me, right? Then think about this. When he does something in his language and you are not receiving it in the manner that his heart, his intention is giving it, you train him to stop even doing that.
Right. Totally true.
So it's really, again, it's always about me. It's always about what my reaction is indicating what, right? And then sometimes it has to be, okay, I got to love myself in the way I want, but I accept this the way he loves me. But it's okay to have that conversation to say, you know what, dude, sometimes I need some flowers. Right? I am, but I love the way you cleaned out the garage because you knew that was something I really wanted done, and I love it. But next time, I need to just add some fresh flowers after you clean it or something. But you know what I'm saying? It's like we can't count on people to make us feel worthy and valuable. We have to do that ourselves. That's why we're here. And in doing that, everything else is just more. And that's where happiness really happens. Nobody is here to make you happy.
We're responsible for our own happiness. And it's funny, I'm having a little aha moment from a conversation with my daughter when she was, probably about 16. And she was sitting in the car, just the two of us, and just complaining about her friends. And I said, who is hurting right now? Because they don't even know you're talking about this, right? But you're miserable. So who are you hurting by continuing to dwell on this? And it's only you, right? And so the same is true in this relationship. If I'm continually angry or frustrated with him, who am I hurting? I'm only hurting myself and my own energy and the way that I feel. It's not changing anything about him and the way that he is or will be.
And absolutely. And the deeper dive, though, comes from when you know your worth, when you know what you want, when you know what you deserve, then you get to the point whether you begin to evaluate the relationship on those terms, right? And if you know you want more of something and you still want this relationship, then it's time to kind of renegotiate the terms, of what you want. But that's always an important part of relationship happiness, is what I want. And it's not in that selfish tantrum way, because we all grow, we all evolve in a relationship. And if you're not, then you really know that relationship is something that's stale and that you are settling in. And that has a lot to, then your behaviors will really change. And you'll see yourself feeling a lot of different ways and acting out in different ways. We're afraid to look at relationships and the restlessness we feel within our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
We feel like anytime we're restless, whether it's in a job, in a relationship, in any other area, we get scared by that, right? And restlessness is something, as the angels say, is just growth in motion. And there is nothing that changes that grows without some change. And relationships are one of those things. We try to hold it stagnant, right? And the expectation is not the same as when we first got married, or 10 years and we got married. I mean, I was married for 31 years. Your damn Scipio wasn't the same, from the early years, right? But you can't be afraid of the restlessness. You have to understand where it's coming. And in order to make something continue to work, you have to adjust with it, but not by denying what you feel, denying what you want, denying what you need.
We need to have some more guys in this conversation.
Some more what?
We need some more men in this conversation with us. They need to hear this too.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
They will hear it. Trust me. We'll tell them.
I agree. Well, it's true. I mean, everyone, we were laughing the other day because friends of ours, they're coming on to the 7-year itch. And I looked at my husband and I went, I haven't had the we're almost at 17 years. I haven't had the 7-year itch yet. And he's like, I don't know, there's the number 7s in there. But I have to say, I'm really lucky because Mark is one of those people who kind of gets that, that people change, people grow, and we'll have those conversations. And I have to say, they're not easy conversations. Mm-hmm. Not that, and it's not in anger, it's not in frustration, but it is in it really in love, because we do love one another and we do enjoy spending time with one another. But there are periods of time where, one of us is getting up here, is growing and changing. And if this one just stays here, the relationship gets uneven. And then that's where people, I think, get unhappy when it comes to that love and that romance that just goes away. And the romance within the relationship, but the romance within yourself
Yeah.
because things aren't working out here, and you kind of
Well, see, what do we think about romance? We inject some romance into our relationship to brighten up, to make it exciting, all that. We want the same thing in our own lives. Relationships are not supposed to be, I mean, I never believed in that whole two becoming one thing. I really do believe that you're on a path together, and sometimes the path diverges a little bit, but that's when you are making individual gain and growth. And if you're really meant to, you're going to come back together, right? And keep smooth. And then you're going to go out again and come back. And maybe you go out again and you don't come back. But it's not a matter of, we have such a fearfulness of change. And the idea that relationships have to be forever and ever. And I'm not at all suggesting that they can't be long-term. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we put a lot of expectation that's unreasonable on each of us, because nobody knows who they're going to be first day of 10 year than they were, or 20 year. And we have to leave room for the idea that growth is perfection. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, is grow. And one of the things that you said, Luann, that caught my attention is, and I've been talking to a lot of clients about this lately, is the idea that I belief in doubt, right? They're getting really concerned about, I'm doubting things. I'm doubting my relationship. I'm doubting if I know how to do this. I'm doubting this job, whatever. And the part of the disconnect is because they really believed that this is the one. They believed that this is the job. They believed. And one of the things that came to me in a channel message that just had me in tears is that doubt and belief go hand in hand. Doubt and belief are supposed to happen, because with doubt, you begin to grow and hone your beliefs. Here's what I believe, but I'm kind of doubtful. I have doubt about that. So you chase the doubt, you chase the curiosity, and you come back and it's like, okay, I believe this part of what I believe, but I don't believe this part anymore. And then you get to the part where you've honed your beliefs until it's what you know. And what you know is something that's really built on truth, and you know it by the way it feels, and you just know it. And then that's where faith kicks in. That's where trust kicks in. Belief and faith and trust don't go together. That comes with the knowing. Belief and doubt, because the doubt is what allows you to grow and expand. And we have to be able to apply those same ideas to our relationship and not be afraid to let ourselves grow, because we're afraid of lack. I might lose. I might not have, right? And fear is the big thing that people associate with love anyway. But we don't think about, as I grow, I'm going to gain.
I love that. Now I'm really, I've written so many notes. Like most of the time I listen and I talk and I try to get everybody else to talk, but I've spent a lot of time writing notes, Lori, because as I said in the beginning, you really bring us to another level and really help us to think in a different way. And that's really what we want to do with these Wonder Series, is really to help ourselves, each other, and our audience, people who join in live, people who are listening to us in the replay, really to open ourselves up and to think on that next level. And so I want to thank you so much for always being so willing to share and to share wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Well, I love these Wonder Series, whether I'm participating as an expert or listening, because you're absolutely right. Everybody brings something to wonder about. And if we're not wondering, we're not growing. And if we're not growing, we're not evolving. Yeah. So definitely get out there and romance yourself and see how much happiness you can get. And the other thing I will tell you, if you go to my website, soulcoach.co, and it's SOL coach.co, you can get a free workbook called Happy Happy Joy Joy. And it's really about exercises to get you back in touch with your sensuous world. And that will help raise your happiness quotient like that as you begin. It's going to help you, that whole give and receive thing that Luann tried that tripwire on.
Do you put that link in the chat or your website in the chat,
Yeah,
Lori?
absolutely.
Yep, and I'll make sure, Luann, that when I post this to both the blog and on Facebook, that'll be connected also. Does anybody remember the cartoon back in the day? It was a really silly cartoon. I think it was when Cartoon Network first started. There were these little goofy guys, and that was actually something they used to run around going, happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy. And so
Yeah.
I'll have to find that cartoon. I'll post that too.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, that's happy, happy, joy, joy, because you really first want to start with building your happiness. So then that you can actually, that transforms into joy. And that's where you want to be, your baseline living condition is joy. Because happiness, you know, ebbs and flows with the, you know.
Interesting. I'm going to put my 2 cents in here as the happy living coach and obviously co-founder of Living Healthy List. My motto is healthy living for a happy life, and that's the first part of it. And of course, what makes that, you know, what makes happiness? Healthy body, healthy mind, healthy spirit, healthy finances. All of those things come together to, you know, to create the healthy piece that evolves into the happy piece, which then evolves into the joy, as you just said.
Exactly. Yep.
Questions, comments? This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
No, I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and I took a lot of notes too. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for listening and being here. And as I go through my, because sometimes I'm like, okay, here we go.
I know it's about romance and everything, but I kept going to my daughter, you know, because our relationship is changing as she's grown up and then having a family of her own, and how that whole dynamic has changed and everything. And you know that you're loved, but you got to give that space to grow and change, like you were alluding to. So I was like I know the romance part was in there, but it was like at the same time, it's relationships, right? And love. So, yeah.
Exactly. And romance is just a part of every relationship. And every relationship includes yourself, your loving partner, your family members. I mean, so we got to get out of the idea that romance is only meant to be part of the wooing, the courting, the injecting to make things come alive again. Romance is just how we show love.
Yeah.
And it is, and that includes, you know, everybody.
Awesome. Lots to think about, and this has been great, Lori. Thank you. Ladies, thank you for joining us. Join us again next month. We are here every second Tuesday of the month at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. Bring a friend. Let everyone know that this is, you know, this is an open forum. We're here to talk. We're here to help. We're here to support. That's what we do. And if you would, for those of you who are listening who haven't been to livinghealthylist.com, check us out. All of us here, you know, all of the experts have their own profile. They have their blogs that they write. So if you're interested in anything where it comes to health, wellness, personal development, and having some fun, check us out. livinghealthylist.com. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Laura, I think you're still recording.
All right.